purpose of this training here today is to give you an overview of the rules of procedure for running your board meetings so that they continue to run effectively, and also give you some background on Robert's Rules, which is the order of procedure that you are going to be following when you have your board meetings every week. We are recording this meeting today for those that could not be here, so if you could please hold your questions until the end. We are going to reserve some time at the end of the meeting for anyone to bring up any questions you might have about something you've observed. We've also have a group of staff members who have kindly volunteered here today to run through a very quick mock meeting. So we're going to show you how you should be running your meetings, following an agenda, and bringing motions to give you an example of how those things happen. And then again at the end, if you have questions about that process, you can feel free to let us know. Thank you again for serving as a board and commission member in the City of Oak Park. You are one of over 100 people that currently volunteer to serve on boards and commissions in the city. These boards and commissions are comprised of both statutory and advisory boards. So statutory boards are those that are mandated by Michigan statute, and Michigan law dictates how we run and operate those boards, whereas the advisory boards are those that only serve in an advisory capacity to council. So you are responsible for bringing issues to council that you feel that are important to the city. The city is a city manager form of government. We are comprised of you, the voters, who in turn elect the city council, who in turn hires the city manager, as well as the department heads that help to operate the city on a daily basis. The expectations of boards and commission members are on the back of the packet that you picked up today. I would encourage you to go through those rules and again ask any questions at the end of the presentation today if you have any concerns about the requirements. These board and commission rules apply as to all the boards and commissions for the City of Oak Park. So while each board and commission is able to vote and establish their own bylaws, there is a standard set of rules that the city requires all boards and commissions to follow. One of the most important rules to follow is that individuals that are members of a board and commission are a collective group to be fair, impartial, and respectful. And that is what we try to achieve across all boards and commissions in the city. You are going to respect the limitations of their individual and collective authority, and members will strive to appreciate differences in approach and point of view, whether from each other, the community, the mayor, the council, or staff, and be cognizant of each other's time. Again, that's part of why we're doing the rules of procedure, so that you can effectively run your meetings, make the most of your time, and ensure that all of the members of the public who are participating in the meeting have an equal opportunity to voice their concerns and be heard. Again, these are a continued review of expectations of boards and commissions. The attendance policy is one that I want to specifically bring to your attention. The city charter mandates that you cannot miss more than 25% of meetings or you will be replaced. Attendance is very important because in order to ensure effective running of a board, you have to have a quorum, which is 50% plus one. If you can't meet the quorum requirements, you cannot make decisions at a meeting. And for those boards that are statutory, where your position is important to the effective running of the city government, cancellation of a meeting can impair or impact somebody who is trying to do business before the city. So those attendance requirements are very important. Board members are appointed by City Council. You've all gone through that particular process, and your terms vary in length by board. We try to overlap them so that we have both new and experienced board members serving at the same time. And those terms generally run from 2 to 4 years and will expire in February or August of each year. Appointing and reappointing board members is also done in February and in August. The bylaws of each board and commission contain the basic rules that you're going to follow. And during your first meeting, once all of the members are together, you're going to vote on who's going to become a member, serve as the chair, the vice chair, and the officers of the board. This is just a general overview of what boards and commissions are considered statutory and those that are considered advisory. Again, statutory, we have very little flexibility in how we operate those boards. Those include the Board of Review, the Library Board, Retirement Board, Planning and Zoning, Elections, Brownfield, Corridor Improvement Authority, Parks and Rec, and also we have the Building Board of Appeals. All of those boards are extremely important to effective operation of the city government, and also can be a vital part of the process that residents have to follow if they want to seek approval for certain things like zoning. And if they don't get those approvals, they can go on to further action such as the courts, which again makes it very important that we follow the rules of procedure so that to ensure that we're complying with that process and it's fair and objective, so that if it does continue to go on into a court process or litigation, we have that documented. Staff liaisons. Please take a moment after the meeting today to go through this again, because this is a very important and often confusing portion of your board membership. Staff liaisons are provided by the city for each board and commission as support for the board. They are not operating the board. They're not doing your work for you. They are there as support. So please understand that your support that you're given by the city for your staff liaison does not mean that you can assign them work or that they're going to be making decisions for the board. It falls upon the board to make those decisions and serve your role for the city as a member of the board. Those are not the responsibilities of the staff liaison. The staff liaison is going to help facilitate adherence to the bylaws and the mission. So if you have any questions about the operation of the meeting, the agenda, the rules of procedure, your staff liaison can assist you with those questions. Your staff liaison is also going to be helpful with ensuring that the attendance policy is followed, doing the necessary reporting if, in fact, the attendance policy is not being followed by some members. And also your staff liaison will determine whether or not absences are excused. So excused absences, if you're a board and commission member, include those for religious holidays, illness, death of a family member, or potentially if you have a new baby in the family, a funeral, those could also be considered excused absences. But those have to be reported in advance before the meeting is missed. And the importance of that is so that we can make sure that we respect everyone's time. Because if we determine that there are excused absences and we're not going to have a quorum, then that meeting needs to be rescheduled in advance so that everyone knows not to come, and then find out once they come to the meeting that it has to be rescheduled and we can't do business. If you do not have a quorum, boards and commissions can read reports, but you cannot vote or make decisions on anything. Typically, if we know in advance that there's no quorum, you're not going to even meet to read reports. The entire meeting will just be adjourned. But you are allowed to read reports into the record without a quorum. Open Meetings Act. This is one of the most important laws that you will have to follow as a member of a board and commission. This is a Michigan law that applies to government, and it ensures that all the decisions made in the governmental process are open to the public, and the public has a right to see the meeting and also be heard at the meeting. All meetings have to be open to the public in person. We get a lot of questions about whether Zoom meetings are allowed now. There was a temporary exception made during COVID for people to participate in council meetings and board and commission meetings by Zoom. That exception no longer applies. So while the city does broadcast meetings on YouTube and through the local television station, the actual governing members of a board and commission or city council, they have to be in person, and the meeting has to be open to the public, even if public members are allowed to watch remotely. All decisions, all deliberations, all voting has to be made in an open meeting. This means that as a board and commission member, you cannot speak with your fellow members, text or email or deliberate or try to decide any issues that are before the board or commission in advance of the meeting. If you have any debate, any questions, any comments about things that are on the agenda for a board meeting, you need to ensure that those comments are brought before the entire board during a meeting. This is one of the most frequently brought up issue that I deal with as a city attorney across the board. I'm going to mention one caveat because it does come up a lot: canvassing. The statute for the Open Meetings Act does allow canvassing. It is not a violation of the act. Canvassing is when boards and commission members are allowed to call their fellow members and say, how are you going to vote on an issue? And that's where the conversation ends. The reason I don't like this particular exception is because when you ask that particular question, a lot of times the conversation doesn't just stop there. You ask the question, and then inevitably the conversation will lead into, well, why? Why are you voting like that? Don't you think you should consider this? And then you're violating the act. So I'm bringing that to your attention because I get that a lot where someone will say, well, I was just canvassing. You are allowed to canvass. That's what the law says, but we don't encourage it. Meeting notices. The Open Meetings Act requires that notices of meetings be posted. The name of the board, the address, the telephone number, the time and the place of the meetings be posted in advance. Your staff liaison will handle the notice, posting, and ensure that these requirements are met, so you do not have to worry about this. But I'm just bringing it to your attention so that you are aware that this is part of the Open Meetings Act process. Also, the meeting agenda is posted and prepared in advance and will be emailed to you before the meeting. You're not required to review the agenda, but we do encourage you to do so before you come to the meeting to ensure that you're prepared to discuss any issues that are on the agenda. As a member of the board and commission, you may also request that items be added to the agenda. So again, this goes back to making sure that decisions and deliberations are made at an open meeting. If there is an item of concern that you would like added to the agenda for your board or commission, make sure that that's added to the agenda in advance, and then it can be discussed at the meeting. If it's not on the agenda, it's not going to be able to be a matter of discussion. Meeting minutes are required for all of the meetings, and once the meetings are documented in the minutes, those are turned over to the city clerk's office in order to be posted on the city website. Minutes are basically a summary. They're going to reflect the general discussion and what occurred during the meeting. They're not going to be a verbatim recitation of every single word that was said. The initial minutes that are prepared are posted to the website, and then when you have a follow-up meeting, you're going to vote on whether or not you approve those minutes. If there are any errors or omissions that you feel are in those minutes, you can address those at the meeting, the following meeting. The draft of the meeting minutes is required to be available for public inspection within 8 business days following the meeting. And approved minutes must be filed with the city clerk and available to the public within 5 business days. And again, this is handled by your staff liaison. Parliamentary procedure is Robert's Rules of Order. Many of you have probably heard about this. This is going to dictate the way that you run your meetings. These particular rules have been in existence for several hundred years. They are not intended to limit speech or in any way impinge or impair your ability to make decisions at a meeting, but they're intended to make sure that your meeting is well organized, that it flows, that you get through your agenda without a lot of disruptions. You hear a lot about motions that are made. If you've ever come to a city council meeting, you note that a motion is what is typically made following the agenda. This is the way that you approve issues that are on the agenda during a meeting. The biggest error that people make with motions is that you always want to say that your motion is in the affirmative. I move to approve a stop sign. I move to approve this agenda item. The error that we see is that I move to reject this agenda item. You see how that's not in the affirmative. You want to make sure that when you make a motion that you're moving to approve something. Moving in favor of a motion does not mean that you're voting in favor of it. So when you're going to see during the mock meeting that we're going to do here for you today, as we move through the agenda, the first step is we're going to do a motion to bring a matter up for consideration. That takes a first and then a second. That only is a first and a second vote to open the matter for discussion. It does not mean you're actually voting in favor of that matter. Once the discussion takes place, that's when there is a vote to determine if you want to vote for it or against it. If you approve the motion as is, you vote for it. That's a yay. If you disapprove of the motion, that's a nay. With some very limited exceptions, all of your motions are going to be what we call a voice vote. So that means that everyone says yay or nay depending on how they want to vote for something. At city council meetings, you may observe that we do what's called a roll call vote, where every member says yay or nay, and that's documented based upon the member's name. That is done specifically for approval of funding allocations, and also as a board or commission, you have the ability to do a roll call vote if you choose to do so, specifically if it's a contested issue, if you want to document who's voting yay or nay, specifically based on their name, you have the ability to do that, but it is not required. And we're going to show you that during our MAC meeting today, the difference between a voice vote and a roll call vote. To introduce a motion, to change a motion, to consider a motion, these are all the types of motions that you have the ability to bring during a meeting. What we're giving you here today is more of like a Cliff Notes version of Robert's Rules. The actual Robert's Rules of Order gives you dozens of different motions that you could potentially bring. We're not going to get into that level of detail specifically because of our time constraints here today. Again, this is the type of voting that is permitted, a voice vote. Most motions are approved with a simple majority of members present, which is 50% plus 1. A roll call vote is used when it's hard to distinguish the outcome of a voice vote, or a show of hands is also appropriate. The agenda, we talked about this. This is sent out in advance for you to review. It'll be in your email. It's extremely important to follow the agenda. One of the common issues that we see in Board of Commission meetings is that people will freely start discussions and not follow the agenda. The difficulty with that is that there are specific matters on the agenda that need to be handled in order for the Board or Commission to conduct its business, especially if you are a statutory board. So we're going to make sure that by following these rules, you get through your agenda first, and then you will have a public comment period where anyone from the public can make a comment, and we'll talk about what the parameters are of that particular process. But moving through your agenda first is your first and foremost responsibility as a member of a board and commission. You start with old business, new business, and then any member wishing to speak must address the chairperson. And that is also important because you don't want people talking over each other. This ensures that everyone has equal opportunity to speak and be heard. And you address the chair in order for you to have permission to have the floor. You make your comments, and then the chair will acknowledge the next person that's speaking. If someone interrupts or otherwise disrupts the meeting, it's the chairperson's responsibility to call the meeting back to order and ensure that those parliamentary procedures are followed. There's no cross discussion that's allowed. So if you're in a meeting, you can't turn to your neighbor and have a side conversation about what's on the agenda. Anything that's spoken or that you want to say, you should ask permission from the chair to speak and then bring those issues before the entire board. Public comment, limited to 3 minutes per person. Each board and commission can establish their own rules as to how much time they want to allow for public comment. But the general rule is 3 minutes, which is what we follow here for city council meetings. The risk that you run if you do not have a time limit for public comment is that then someone can talk as long as they want. And I can tell you that we've had a commission meeting before where someone talked for over 2 hours. And if you do not have a rule, then that is permissible, because the reason for the rule is that we ensure that everyone is given the equal opportunity to be heard and it receives the same amount of time to speak. And they need to know in advance that they have that time limit. The chair is going to be responsible for ensuring that those time limits are adhered to. So you have a timer on your phone, or somebody might be in charge of looking at their watch. You can delegate that during your meeting, but if you do want to set a time limit, you have to ensure that everyone gets the same amount of time, and also that those public comments are public comments. This is not an opportunity for a dialogue or a debate between members of the board and the public comment. Just allow for the comments. Limitations to public comments are only that it cannot be offensive. Vulgar language is not permitted, and also it does not permit campaigning. So political candidates can't come in to public comment and use that as an opportunity to advocate for their campaign. But other than that, people are allowed to come in and speak as they deem fit, and they're allowed that 3 minute time period. At the end of the meeting, there is a motion to adjourn. This is typically done by the chair. The chair will make a motion to adjourn. Then there will be a motion moved for a second by another member, and then there will be a voice vote to approve that motion to adjourn. If you have any questions or have any observations that you'd like to address when we're done, please do so when we have our Q&A period.
The library continues to receive no financial or after-school resource assistance from the Oak Park School District. This money should be utilized for reading materials, programming, or extending library hours, especially in light of cuts to library funding by the current federal administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Any other comments? Having hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. There's a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget and millage rates and acknowledging the multi-year budget, including projections for fiscal years 2026 to 2027 and 2027 to 2028. Is there a motion? Seconded by Crawford. She's newer. And then City Clerk Norris. I believe we have a first and a second motion. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Crawford.
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar.
Yes.
Councilmember Radner.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead.
Yes. Thank you, City Clerk Norris. Moving on to item C of